Hello, this is Tonelli. Welcome to a new episode of Inside the Song. If you're new to this series, in these videos I take a musical idea or concept or even technique and show you the application in a real song. And because of my huge guitar player ego, but also because otherwise YouTube might take the music and the video down, I use my own songs from my own records. And today's example is Eye of the Storm. It's a song from my album Mystic Electric. And I think it's a great example of how I mix open strings with regular playing to hopefully great effect. And I usually apply this technique to many things, to scales, even to chords, but today's example is how I do it mixing arpeggios and open strings. So before we continue, let me just play you the first part of the song, which is the section we're going to analyze, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so that's the section, and you can probably hear an underlying chord progression here underneath all these chords. And it's very simple. It's one bar of G minor, one of D minor, one bar of G minor and A diminished, B flat major, and D seventh. That brings us back to G. Very much in the harmonic minor realm as far as the chords go, and altogether sounds like this. Okay, one little detail before we continue. It has nothing to do with actually open strings, but if you are playing this and it doesn't quite match what you hear on the record, is that on the record, I play all my arpeggios over a drone G. So even though the arpeggios do suggest this chord progression I just showed you, I'm not actually playing it. I'm just playing a G over them. That way is a lot less descriptive and less in your face, and it becomes more ethereal and mystical maybe. And that's kind of what I was going for with the song, right? So I'm just telling you so that if you play over it, you go like, well, it doesn't sound right. It's because I'm playing all the chords over a G. So now I have my, even though only implied, an actual chord progression where I'm going to put my arpeggios over it. And I could do it in a very square, shredder-like way. Like for each chord, there could be an arpeggio. And then we can go to the diminished and the major. Right? That's a bit boring though, and I kind of grew out of that when I was 17. So I was hoping to find something a bit more interesting, and this is where the open strings come in. So instead what I'm doing is taking very simple arpeggios, and it doesn't get any simpler, because in G minor I literally play G, B flat, and D, right? It's the actual triad. But I mix it with the open strings. And one thing I'm doing is mixing it with open strings that are agreeable with the chord. So if I'm playing G, B flat, and D, my open strings are D and G. So you see I'm playing notes that fit the chord. And when I go up to D minor, I play A and D open strings, and they also fit the arpeggio. So why am I doing that? Well, first of all, is because I want to keep tension for later, but also because there's a trick here. The notes that I'm playing open string are in the same register as the notes that I'm playing in my arpeggio with my fingers. And so by playing them quite fast, you get this idea that is really hard to, you get the idea of the arpeggio and of the effect, but it's really hard to pinpoint exactly what it is I'm doing, because you can't quite hear the separation between open strings, maybe lower, and my arpeggio higher, because they're really in the same register. So this is the effect. Right? And also you might notice how I'm changing when I play notes and when I play the open strings. I'm using it to create rhythmic movement and rhythmic interest. So the first time, but the second time, so the second one is kind of pushes it forward and it creates momentum, and it sounds like this. See? And the second one. So when I play together, and then I kind of follow the arpeggio, and then again try to use rhythmical devices to make things interesting. I break up the chord and the arpeggio, and I just play a descending line, which implies a B flat major and a D7 that closes back to G, but it's not arpeggio, 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 right? But I'm always using open strings because they kind of glue the whole thing together. This is it for the first section, but I'm going to give you a little extra thing here regarding the second section, which we're not going to analyze. But if you noticed, as I just said, when I play on the lower arpeggios, I'm using notes in the open strings that are very much in the same register as my arpeggio. Now, when I move and shift for the second part to the higher frets, the open strings, of course, stays the same. So I'm creating this idea that we start here, arpeggios, open strings, and then I bring the arpeggios up. And it gives you this feeling of elevation and progression. And the reason is that I'm not bringing both things up. Maybe with tapping I could, but I'm not doing that. I'm keeping the ground where it is, and I just kind of take off with my arpeggios. And it's a great effect, and it works great because it keeps one foot on the ground, you know, and then you kind of soar with the other. So when I go up here, and you can hear, of course, the whole song, there'll be a link, but you see how it kind of elevates you. And then I work my way down again at the end, and that's kind of the trick. I hope you found this interesting and useful. I'm sure with a little bit of practice you will be able to take this to new heights. Just a little bit of advice if you want to get into this. Try to develop a sense and an instinct for what keys work best with open strings. So first of all, know your open strings, but that's easy, how they're tuned. But also try to develop an idea of what keys tend to agree more with these open strings. You know, some of them are very easy, like C major works great, G major, there's a lot of minor keys that work, A, and there's E. But, you know, some keys, the open strings represent really strong dissonances, so it's a lot more difficult. And some other keys, you'll be able to use some of the strings, but not others. So you kind of have to work that out for yourself. Just, you know, learn your scales, and basically you'll see if these strings fit. Some notes that are very strong dissonances, they might be very interesting, but you have to be very careful with how you use them. Okay? Well, let me know how it goes in the comments below. If you haven't done so, please do subscribe and like if you like this video, and I'll see you very soon with more. See ya!